Welcome. Good evening, everybody. Warm greetings to all the participants of Healthcare Insights, our fourth monthly session powered by RedMed and LBN Tech Solutions and co-hosted by All Ladies League Digital Transformation Chapter. I am Meghalai Sindhilkumar from LBN Tech Solutions, as well as I'm the All India Chairperson for Digital Transformation, All Ladies League. Welcome everybody on this wonderful Saturday evening. Thanks to Sandhya and Jay Srinivasan, the founders of RedMed. We have been having eminent speakers from the healthcare sector over the months sharing their insights with us. A little bit about RedMed. RedMed focuses on enabling affordable preventive care that promotes wellness, early detection of chronic disease, and prevention of infectious diseases. And today, the session is titled Technology in Healthcare. Our expert speaker is Dr. Geetha Manjunath, founder, CEO, and CTO of NIRAMAI. Welcome, Dr. Geetha. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you,
The long form of NIRAMAI is Non-Invasive Risk Assessment with Machine Intelligence. NIRAMAI has developed a novel software medical device to detect breast cancer at a much earlier stage than traditional methods of self-examination. Dr. Geetha Manjunath holds a PhD in computer science from Indian Institute of Science and Management Education from Kellogg School of Management, Chicago. She has over 25 years of experience in IT research and has led many innovative projects in healthcare and transportation, especially catering to emerging market needs. Until end of 2016, she was a lab director heading data analytics research in Xerox, India. Prior to that, she was a principal research scientist at Hewlett-Packard Laboratories for 17 years and a member of the CDAC team, which built the first commercial supercomputer from India. Geetha has won many international and national recognitions for her innovations and entrepreneurial work. She was awarded the CSI Gold Medal in 1991. TRS State Award was named, she was named as one of the top 50 NASSCOM IT innovators in 2009. She was also the winner of 2010 MIT Tech Review Grand Challenges for Technologists and BIRAC Winner Award 2018 for her entrepreneurial research. She has co-authored a book on cloud technologies called Moving to the Cloud. She is a senior member of IEEE and past chair of IEEE Computer Society Bangalore chapter. She is the inventor of 15 US patents. I'm so happy to have you here, Dr. Geetha. We're all looking forward to a very enlightening session of technology in healthcare. Welcome again. And moderating this session is an eminent entrepreneur, T.S. Gururaj. Welcome to the session, Gururaj. Guru TS is the quintessential intrapreneur. It took but a short leap of faith to jump from the intrapreneur to the entrepreneur bandwagon. The former country head of Oracle Consulting, a senior technology and engineering professional with over 33 years in digital transformation, management, and manufacturing in executive leadership roles, is currently working on ideas for his own technology startup. He also mentors a couple of startups, one in cybersecurity and another in the social enterprise space, in areas of design thinking, go-to-market, and product market fit. At Oracle as a country head, he became the largest SaaS implementer in India and was instrumental in transforming the region to an 80% cloud business. Very happy to have you here at this session, Guru, for moderating this. And friends, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box and they'll be answered after the moderated session. And over to you, Guru. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Meghalai. Good evening to everyone. I can hear my own voice. There's an echo.
Sukanya is in the same room.
Yeah, but she's muted.
The audio seems to be fine for me.
Fine? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to this session that we have on technology in healthcare. Dr. Geetha Manjunath, it's really a pleasure to have you on this show. I think it's also my privilege, after listening to the introduction that Meghalai gave about you, I feel too small to be talking to you here because it's really a privilege, the kind of achievements that you have had during a career of 30 years. It's remarkable for me to be talking to someone like, sharing the stage with someone like you. Thank you for coming. And also welcome to all the people on this show today. Thanks for making time. It's nice to know that Dr. Geetha, we do have participants who are entrepreneurs themselves, some of them aspiring entrepreneurs. We also have healthcare entrepreneurs, maybe healthcare partners as well, some of them practitioners as well. So I believe that we will have some interesting questions also at the end of the session once they listen to your responses to my questions as well. I wanted to open the session with some kind of a, data points that we have through research papers and published by NASSCOM kind of bodies, right? The startup, if you look at the startup ecosystem, from where we started in 2014 to where we are today, almost 55,000 startups have been registered, and it's expected to reach almost 100,000 startups by the year 2025. And if you look at it, healthcare is the top 3 startups behind EdTech and FinTech probably, and maybe retail also is catching up in the startup ecosystem. And who better to talk to us today when we talk about healthcare startups? NIRAMAI has been a pioneer in AI, using AI technologies to provide healthcare in the healthcare segment. So I want to open out this session, Dr. Geetha, with more of a personal journey question that I have. It's more as there are participants who would be interested in understanding where this idea of this AI startup came to you. If I look at it, starting from academic excellence that you have had at IISc, done your PhDs, and then you went on to achieve professional excellence in HP kind of companies that you worked for. And then you moved into an entrepreneurship world where you again, you have been doing an excellent job in the entrepreneurship journey as well. Give us a sense of where it all started. First of all, how did you come about this idea of healthcare, which is a very complex field to be in, first of all, in the startup ecosystem itself. And then on top of it, you're a woman entrepreneur. You must have faced a lot of challenges, especially doing something in the technology space in a healthcare setup. Now, that's what I wanted to understand from you briefly, Dr. Geetha. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Guraj, for such a elaborate description about the healthcare and NIRAMAI and your comments and also the introduction. And I'm very, very pleased and privileged to be part of this session and given an opportunity to share my learnings over the few years that I've played with healthcare and technology. Just sort of from a journey perspective, you're absolutely right. I was a complete technologist and I'm actually a computer scientist, very interested in research, very interested in innovation, got very interested in AI related, automated decision making and modeling aspect of it around 2007. So from then on, we've been sort of looking at this space of using data to make decisions, not just in healthcare. At Xerox and Hewlett Packard, we've also looked at other kind of domains, customer care, transportation, and all that. But when I started looking at the intersection of technology and healthcare, there clearly, and many of you are working on it, there's clearly additional self-satisfaction that comes in. It's, of making a difference to life, using technology. So that caught on, and I started looking at healthcare problems, particularly facing India, and how we can use technology for this, working with doctors and so on. Around that time, actually, one of my cousin sisters got detected with breast cancer. She was around 40, 42, I think. Suddenly, the doctor said it's fourth stage. And so a very few months to go and all that. She recovered, but within 1.5 years it recurred, and we couldn't save her. So around the same time, another close family member of mine also got detected. She was younger than 40, and we lost her within 2 years. So these kinds of two main incidences in close family circle made me thinking about, and also read about this, right? What are the gaps and where we are today and so on. And I felt, okay, being a technologist, working on so many problems, mostly for the world with the multinational baggage and all that, how do we kind of, why are we not attacking the main problem? Because it's not just the two of them. More than 90,000 women die of breast cancer every year in India, and the global number is 680,000. So many women die even though breast cancer is completely curable. And that sort of, hit me, and I said, like, what can we do? Can we really do something about it? So general, talking to people, figuring out if there are other methods and so on. So that is where I started. And also with, being an entrepreneur, like you were mentioning, like within the company, actually start thinking, innovatively and propose projects and all. So with support from my previous organization management and all, started a small project, started, spending the night cycles in that and so on. And then within 1.5 years, I thought we are looking at a promising way of intersection of what we had done, thermal imaging and machine learning. And so that is where, that was the time when, people started asking, what is breast cancer to do with, I'm not able to explicitly say my previous organization due to sort of confidentiality stuff, but, right, my previous organization. And it's not related to health at all. So how, what is you can't incubate a project more than 1.5 years. So it was time to shut down. And as a lab director of the company for India, I was heading the AI data analytics research for India. As a lab director, I was going to shut off my favorite project myself. And then that got me thinking. I said, what do I need? Do I need a high position in corporate, or do I need this to be done? And the decision is clear. And so I quit my job, and with a couple of my colleagues jumped off to create NIRAMAI. So it's really accidental. And, looking back now, it's 4 years, Jan 2017 is when it started. It's been a long, lot of learning. I guess I would say that, 25 years in corporate, whatever I learned, right? I think much more than that I've learned in the last 2, 3, 4 years, being, it's not really like a women entrepreneur. Of course, you can always think you're a woman and you're an entrepreneur, but I would rather not put any hat and just say, this is the problem we want to solve, and jump off and then say, how do we solve it? And challenges pose themselves. And then we try to say, okay, what are the different options we have, and choose the right option, make the decision, move on, right? And these challenges could be because of gender, because of, the very, very hard problem we are talking, maybe because of medical domain itself, where, AI is less adopted, and many, many reasons, right? So, you start thinking about why is that, rather than like, what do I need? So that mode is when I started. I can go on and on, but maybe I'll give you a pause and say, if there's a specific angle that you want me to talk about in the challenges, I'll be happy to.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Geetha. I think mainly I wanted you to specifically respond to this question is because a lot of us, including myself, we can learn a lot on this entrepreneurship journey, because I set off on my journey just recently after a 33-year-old corporate life. So it's quite useful to learn where does the whole idea of a startup start. Always the problem before us is, I have worked so many years in a particular field. Do I continue in the same field with my startup, or I want to do something different, or I'm passionate about something and I want to do specifically something in that field? These are the kind of questions that even I'm sure other entrepreneurs on the call also would have. What I want to do, moving on from the personal journey, Dr. Geetha, is I think to make it a little more maybe we'll jump into the topic now of healthcare, specifically technology and healthcare. What I wanted to do is talk a little bit about the part about preventive healthcare, then talk about a little about research and how technology is being used in the field of research and new drug discovery, and maybe we'll go into the other part about operational excellence, and maybe you can give us some insights about what NIRAMAI is doing to actually get into the field of affordable healthcare, if I were to put it in affordable healthcare. So maybe I would like to hear your views on what do you think are today the 2-3 biggest challenges that healthcare as an industry is facing?
Sure. See, so healthcare, of course, is main thing. If you come in from India perspective, right? I think there is a huge, I call it healthcare divide. There's a digital divide where we're talking about literacy divide, we're talking about digital divide, and we have a healthcare divide in terms of enabling high quality healthcare possible to everybody, right? So I think that is a huge problem today. Having said that, looking from a technology viewpoint, and that is also an opportunity, right? Where technology can make a difference. And so how do we enable high quality healthcare to everyone, including rural areas and so on? So that is the divide I'm talking about, right? If you consider a doctor in rural area, one doctor is serving 1,000 villages, or at least you can say 1,000 families, but actually it's many, many more villages than that. And then, whereas in India, like you have a doctor, and there are different types of doctors. There's only one expert who is so busy that he doesn't have time to drink a sip of coffee. Right? There are other specialists who are not that well known. They are also studied. They also have the qualification, but they still don't have enough number of people walking in. Right? So there is a lot of demand versus supply mismatch that is there from clinician and patient perspective, and patient to clinician ratio is really pathetic. The number of patients that, if you just look at the number of patients, that is population, and the number of doctors, that is humongous. And then the affordability questions, because in India, again, and we'll try and talk about the global one also. In India, again, it is mostly end user paid system, as opposed to a insurance payer, is what is generally called as an insurance. And if you just step out of India, but in most parts of the world, right? Whenever you say payer, it's always insurance. There is no. So, and I used to initially get very confused when say payer and provider. So yeah, payer is India, but it's not like that. Payer are not citizens. Here also it's changing. I know, thankfully, I think it's little over 50% now, but still the adoption of insurance-led, treatment is because of the mentality of people. What you rightly mentioned, preventative care versus emergency care. It's really about proactive or reactive kind of treatment that we want, right? How many of us will actually go to hospital regularly on January 1st to get an executive health checkup, right? Irrespective of, whether there is any problem or not. How many of us, go to a doctor, you get fever, you take crocin 2 days, and then go to a doctor if the fever doesn't go after 2 days, right? I think most people fall in that category. And I always give this analogy of, I think for this audience it's not required, but I give this analogy of a car, right? Now we are used to annual car maintenance, regular car maintenance, rather than waiting for it to, stop on the middle of the highway, and then break down, and then you sort of, call all kind of emergency activities. And now those kinds of cases, those kinds of situations are avoided mostly because you do a preventive maintenance. I think preventive maintenance for health and body is actually much more important than the car. So that element of it is very, very important. Now, when people start thinking of that in that way, then then the insurance can come in and so on, because people have to be healthy, and insurance can't be there, just to pay the, big checks, right? So now that's what that also is one reason, but that's not always the reason. If there should be an incentive to actually keep people healthy, and that's with the preventative part, and insurance can provide that incentive because the treatment costs reduce and so on. And more importantly, the mindset of people also have to change. So this is another big thing. Thankfully, and this is the one of the very few advantages of COVID, I would say, is that because of the pandemic, there is increased awareness of health related issues in people today. And we are seeing people sort of reading about what needs to be done to avoid what kind of disease and so on and so forth. And people are taking medications, or like, the probiotics and so on and so forth, much before the, the pandemic hits them and so on and so forth. So they are getting into some kind of a preventative kind of mindset, which is good thing. Another big good thing that has happened is also the tele aspect of it, the telehealth, telemedicine, teleconsultation. Earlier, of course, we had the infrastructure, but there was a lack of trust between the patient and the doctor. The doctor was not comfortable talking to a patient on a Zoom like this, and patient also was feeling much better, talking to a doctor straight away. So this has now changed again, pushed by COVID, because they want to avoid going to the hospital and so on. So the telehealth aspect, which is picking up, is here to stay, and it's also a technology-enabled solution, as we all know, right? So some of these things can help in making healthcare affordable and accessible for all, and especially the telehealth part. I'm very gung-ho about making that as, let's say, providing this as at a PHC, which can be Center of Excellence for Healthcare delivery at a hospital, and you have all the experts. Instead of them moving to rural areas, they can actually do a teleconsultation, and this is becoming a reality in many places. I think that that is again another positive of COVID. Anyway, so these are some of the gaps, and some of the solutions we are seeing are enabled by technology.
Before we get into how technology has provided solutions, I know you touched briefly upon the solutions. So just to summarize on the challenges, I think what you're saying is the demand-supply gap. I think it's an operational challenge in the treatment that you have to manage. Second, you mentioned about affordability, that is individual versus insurance-provided healthcare. And in India, it's a quite different picture, that it's all is not insurance, but most of it paid by us individuals. And you also spoke about the trust element is also a challenge that healthcare industry faces in the current situation. So it's a nice way to, I think you very briefly gave us a little bit sense of the solutions as well. So now let's briefly move into the aspect about affordable healthcare itself. I think I want to dwell a little bit, Dr. Geetha, on your own experience. I was really very pleasantly surprised with how you so quickly, there are a lot of startups which innovated so quickly and leveraged the pandemic situation itself, and you did something really very creative with respect to your startup and diagnosis. And you want to give us a sense of what you did. How did you go about this, and what was the solution that you came up with?
For COVID or for breast cancer? COVID.
Yes.
Okay. Sure. So for breast cancer, we were actually using thermal sensing, and AI as
Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about what is this thermal sensor, how is it used in diagnosis, and what did you do differently during the pandemic?
Sure. So yeah, so what happens is, as I mentioned, we wanted to address the issue of breast cancer, and when we look at the current methodologies for breast cancer, the most standard way of doing screening is mammography. and it uses X-rays for detecting small abnormalities in the breast. And also, X-ray, as you know, is radiation, and it's not recommended to be done very often because of the risk versus benefit. Right? So it's also not recommended more than once in 2 years. So that makes early detection a little hard. Harder part is that mammography doesn't work on women under 45 years of age because of what's called as dense breast. And so the whole breast appears dense, and then trying to find a small spot in the dense breast in an X-ray is very, very difficult. And of course, affordability, accessibility, and all of that issue. So because of this, mammography is not also adopted very well in India. Also, it can be considered as a preventative measure or like regular screening and so on, right? So, and obviously regular screening and early detection is very, very important for higher efficacy of the treatment and generally saving lives itself. So that what we have done is to basically use a different type of sensor. We just sort of measure the temperature variations on the chest using a thermal sensor. And, we measure about 400,000 temperature points per person, analyze it using an AI model that we have built to say whether somebody is likely to be malignant or not. This end-to-end solution is automated, and it actually can, even a health worker can generate this report automatically. And that is what we have enabled for general rural screening, rural triaging, and so on. And also full detailed report is generated for the doctor to review and hand it over in a hospital, for example. So it's a more much detailed prognostic elements are also there. So this is something that we've done, and we've screened more than 35,000 women. And so that's sort of what was the background. And then COVID struck, and unfortunately, after 3 years of startup, we have to look at how many people are getting screened, and these metrics kick in, right? We need to start measure some of these things. Obviously the screenings dropped. They dropped heavily because people were not walking into our hospitals. We have installations in 15 cities and so on. So it's not just for our tests. People are not walking in to any preventative care, non-emergency care, and it was also good for them because of possible contamination and so on. So at that time, one thing we did was to actually start home screening. Where the first ever time we started breast cancer screening at home, breast health screening at home. There were many women who were stuck at home. They were due for a regular screening. Probably they were high risk. They were actually post-surgery patients who had to be regularly screened. So all of them, could not come for a mammogram, and we were able to serve them. We continue to serve them. In fact, that has become a new element in our solution, just like taking the same solution to home, because it's completely radiation free. We can set it up anywhere. The second thing we did was, okay, we're working on thermal sensing, and all of us know thermal sensing now because, the screening that is needed in every building that is opening up after a lockdown. We have all of these chota thermometers, infrared thermometers, that is with every security guard today, right? And so we looked at this problem and then said, okay, they're actually doing these manual screening, and there's a lot of issue with this. These thermometers, infrared thermometers, if you actually make them take your temperature 3 times, and you will see how bad the thermometers are really. So you will get 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 90 degrees, and 70. I mean, you get all kinds of numbers, and it also depends on how far you keep from the forehead. So I mean, it's really like almost like an eye wash, whatever they're doing, putting the numbers there, and so measuring and trying to. So we said, okay, can we automate? Can we use technology for this? And so we came up with this computer vision based solution where we just keep a thermal sensor at the entry gate of any enterprise or hospital, school, mall, any of these, just like you would see it in a airport, something like that. But then this is a much focused element, and it's connected to a software element which basically does face detection and looks for the temperature on the face, and then also obviously gives alarms as needed. It also checks whether mask is being worn and all of that. All of this, the adherence to COVID guidelines, right? COVID precautionary guidelines is something that the tool does. Another element that we did was using AI, and this actually turned out to be very useful to tier 2, tier 3 cities, is screening chest X-rays for COVID, right? So we have many of these villages, where patients used to walk in and they used to take an RT-PCR, like basically throat swab, and then send it to a district hospital for analysis. But what turned out was that it takes about 2 days for the results to come, as we know, and it's also very far away, and the result has to reach here, right? So by that time, the person was getting into a much higher level of symptomatic condition, and so on and so forth. So we started this, but each of these smaller district hospitals, taluka hospitals, have an X-ray, because it's something that most hospitals, most village hospitals also have. So we started a WhatsApp-based service. We call it Swift, a software with WhatsApp enabled some expansion. Came up with. And so basically, every doctor who's on our WhatsApp group, just whenever there's an X-ray, he takes a picture of it. It could be an analog X-ray, you can just take a picture, or it could be a digital X-ray. Very few of them have digital X-ray in the villages. So they take images and then send, as soon as it sent on WhatsApp, our team picks up and then posts into our machine learning model. And then we immediately send out the report saying what's the probability that the person is malignant. Sorry, person has COVID. Sorry, my bad. And so with that, if there is a higher probability, then the person, the patient is actually directly sent to the district hospital without waiting for the RT-PCR test. Of course, by the time he goes there, the PCR test is also available. But then, you save these 2 days, and you can actually proactively start giving treatment and so on and so forth. And we were so happy that within 1 day, we had 100+ doctors using this regularly. And within 5 days, our WhatsApp group was full, 255. Only then I came to know that, WhatsApp has a limitation on the number of, honestly. So that effect that it became. Thankfully, now the cases have come down, but thousands of the people have benefited from this. So technology can really help, to bridge the gap, is something that, I've seen it happening in both these cases, and I strongly feel for that.
So, by that response, I understand that one is you made it faster, definitely. I think you made it quite faster using technology, the way you diagnosed, the way you used thermal scanners, the way you quickly installed it, the way you used WhatsApp technologies to immediately communicate and collaborate. And thermal imaging was one of the technologies that you mentioned. What about, can you also throw some light on how did you make it more affordable for people, and how did you make it better? That means, is your screening rate better than what it was earlier just because you used some technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now AI, artificial intelligence, has become a norm in almost every segment. Definitely, it's making huge inroads into health tech as well. So what we did, let me talk about the breast cancer screening piece. So in breast cancer, what happens is a pricing. Let's say if one person has to take a mammogram, it costs about 3,500 rupees, which is a lot of money. Definitely, you can do rural with it. So what we looked at is our own test is about 1/3 the cost of that in the hospital. We said, okay, what are the things that we can take away from here, right? Because we are doing automated interpretation. So we sort of reduced the intensity of the report itself and said, okay, what if we just give a triaging report? The automated analysis of the thermal images generates, of course, multiple scores and guidance to the doctor and all that. Instead of that, can we just say what people started calling traffic light output, red, yellow, green, right? And this is completely automatically done, including the test. It takes about 15 minutes, and this can be done with health workers because obviously it's automated. And when they do this, it generally, whenever a person is found to be red, she is made to sort of, wait, and she's taken to a hospital for a follow-up, diagnostic test before actually. So with this, what we ended up doing is that, hand examination was the standard and is still the standard guideline for breast cancer screening in villages. Now, which basically hand examination can only detect 25 millimeters of cancer, as small as that. But we are able to detect 4 millimeters, right? So that's sort of the difference. And also, as you said, real-time reporting, which is very, very important possibility. And most importantly, because we have taken all the expensive elements out of it, it was completely automated. A health worker could do it. Doctor only reviews if something is red, or actually only if she is brought to a hospital later. We were able to bring down the cost to 100 rupees per person, right? For the screening itself, which is a huge, 100 and 350, whatever, a huge ratio of what is current. So with this, we are able to do a lot, many women also. And another aspect we worked on is the experience of screening as well. We made it completely non-contact, non-invasive. So women, if you shy to disrobe in front of others, it's really a changing room experience. They just are in front of a device, and not even a technician is seeing them. So that gave a lot of confidence to women. And we've been able to do many camps as well. Of course, we do have hospital installations, which are also as well used in home screening as well. So I think a use of AI, but there are certain challenges here, right? It's not just any ML can be put and then you can allow it to start, deciding.
In fact, sorry, Dr. Geetha, before even you tell us about the challenges, I wanted, just for people who are new to technology on the call, can you just give us some insight into, we keep saying AI is used, right? What exactly does AI do for whatever you have told us about the case, this illustration? What exactly does AI do here?
Sure. So the easiest way of explaining what an AI can do is, see, we have let's say we have a small child, right? 6-month-old, as small as that, right? Or maybe 8 months. And then you see a lot of cats and dogs around. So you show it and say, this is a cat and this is a dog, right? You start teaching some words.
Training them, yeah.
Right? You start telling the baby, like, this is a cat, this is a car, this is a lorry, whatever, right? And surprisingly, they don't have to see the same cat or a same dog or a same lorry or a same car. If you show some other one, which is a different model, they're able to say it's a car, it's a cat, and so on and so forth. So that intelligence is what is there in there. It's all the neurons and so on and so forth. That is what we're trying to make. Showing a bunch of samples and then saying, okay, learn the pattern, learn something that is describing, visually describing this particular object, learn that. And then when I show you something which you have never seen before, you're able to say whether it's a car or a dog or a cat or whatever, right? So that is what, an AI, very, very simplistically put, can do, especially with imaging kind of input. Essentially, it is use of multiple data, modeling the data that is available in a way that the way the brain thinks, it kind of model that and then say, make decisions out of it, right? There are different supervised, unsupervised, and different type of machine learning models. But the one which I'm talking about is supervised. Same thing is used for breast cancer as well. What we do is we take a bunch of thermal images and then very, very simplistic, show the thermal image and say whether it's you also tell the model whether it's cancer or not cancer. And when you show a person for whom you do not know whether there is cancer or not, show a thermal image of that person, the model is able to say whether it is cancer or no cancer. So roughly there is a training phase where these images are fed into the model along with class labels. Class label is cancer or no cancer. That's a 2-class classification, we call it. And then learns the model. And then when you actually have the machine learning model built, you show a new person, new thermal image, it's able to say. But it's not completely automated. You need to sort of, actually build those models also, build that expertise with some extra human intelligence as well. For example, we had to read a lot of books about how do doctors determine if somebody has cancer or not. I know we looked at, for example, in a thermal image, a point which is hot is likely to be abnormal. And this point has to be irregular because cancer cells grow at very highly irregular rates. So we started worrying about what is hot, what is not. Like for example, we have hot spot, warm spot, like that, right? Because it's hot doesn't mean anything about 32 degrees is hot. It is very much dependent on the patient saying what is hot versus what is not. It's very, very relative to the, body's, the person's own skin temperature and so on and so forth. So anyway, so we actually figure out what is the likely hot areas in this, and then analyze the type of shape and all of that. And then we are also able to detect blood vessel structure from the thermal image through some kind of cylindrical structures, and then say, how are the shapes? All of these are features we feed into the machine learning model. And just like, you show a car, and then maybe you'll also tell the baby that, there are 4 wheels, there is a headlight, like that, right? And you will not just show the image, but also you'll have to give some features, feed into it, and together it can actually learn, right? So that's sort of what is done, whether it's COVID, non-COVID from an X-ray, or cancer, no cancer from this thing. So what happens for breast cancer? Now, when we actually put it on the ground, we had more kind of challenges, right? So we were actually asking healthcare workers to start taking images, and they made a lot of mistakes. So again, there is this: is this image good or bad? Again, it's a yes or no answer. So we have almost 20 different machine learning models in this whole end-to-end solution, and ensuring that the accuracy of the prediction is correct. All that is sort of is a long process.
Really, it's very interesting way how we have used artificial intelligence. In fact, I just read about Sweden as a country uses AI to look at dyslexia students, the learning disability. They have a training model where they have fed in data of last 30 years of eye movements and of people which is associated with learning disabilities. And then they are able to tell you just within 3 minutes a potential case of a dyslexia and take action, which used to take earlier 3 years using AI. So you seem to be in the hotbed of activity using technology. So very good examples about cancer treatment, cancer diagnosis, and using thermal imaging. And point you mentioned, doctor, about how you innovated quickly or model towards COVID as well. I think I interrupted you when you were now getting to go to the next phase of you were talking about some challenges you were facing. Maybe you want to throw some light on it, doctor.
Sure. So I think the first and foremost is if the AI model is replacing a doctor, I'm using this quote unquote doctor. Doctors cannot be replaced, but wherever doctors are not able to go, the AI bot can go and then help the doctor scale up, right? So that's sort of where we are. But having said that, even if it is guiding the doctor, I think the first and foremost is the accuracy of interpretation, because thermal imaging, for example, has been around for a long time. I just recently learned that aristocrat at the time, like BC, I don't know, like 2000 BC or some such thing, right? So maybe 600 BC. So they used to, make the person lie down and put wet mud on the person. And wherever it dried up so quickly, that means it's something hotter and something's going wrong there, So temperature for determining whether something is wrong with the body has been something that people have tried long. And even when you get a wound, if you just touch, it's going to be warmer, and you know that, right? And when there is unfortunately, it's a fracture or something, obviously it bulges out and it all be very, very hot in that area. So the body does give that signal. Now, how do we know that this can actually be used for accurately detecting breast cancer or any other abnormality, right? So that is the question. And when we talk about accuracy of AI-based model, let's say Siri is the natural language processing engine that is used by Apple and all, right? So
Alexa, the Alexa, right? The equivalent of Alexa.
yeah, Alexa is the other one, Siri, okay, Google. Now everybody has that, right? So if you ask a question, how far is Bangalore from Chennai or something, it answers. And if you do not pronounce well, it will say, I do not understand. And it's fine if you say, I do not understand. Or if it understands Bangalore to Chennai as Belgaum to Chennai and gives the answer, it is fine. What are we going to lose? We're just going to get some wrong answer, but she's going to tell us whether it's Belgaum to Chennai. So you can actually, but in a cancer case, you make a mistake. The AI makes a mistake. Cancer becomes non-cancer or non-cancer becomes cancer. It's almost a life at risk, right? So we want to reduce, of course, doctors also can make mistakes, but we want to reduce these mistakes to zero if possible, right? And that high level of accuracy is asked for clinical AI applications. Of course, AI applications in healthcare can be just for sort of, making life simple, just like Siri, okay, Google, stuff, right? So that sort of, how do you reduce the waiting time at a particular diagnostic center, all of this, right? So those things are one bunch of applications which are very similar to any other application domain. When you talk about healthcare applications on AI and the challenges which I'm talking about is the clinical applications where AI is being used to make a clinical decision or help make a clinical decision. CDSS, clinical decision support system. So that is where I'm saying the accuracy becomes very important. And when we say accuracy, it's really not the accuracy that we understand, right? We have an exam out of 100, I got 90, okay, 10 are wrong, right? That doesn't work here because of the imbalance in data set. What do I mean by that? Out of 100 people, maximum 4 of them may have some abnormality in the test, right? So all I need to do is to say no for everybody, and I get 96% accuracy. So beautiful. All I have to do is no for everybody. I get only 4 wrong and 4 are the cancer patients. And that is not good. So we are not even talking about accuracy. We are talking about how well did we catch cancer and how many non-cancer did we cause cancer. It's called sensitivity and specificity, right? So that becomes very, very important. So while you balance out the ability to catch cancer, you start unless it's cancer also. So you have to balance out the false positive. This balancing is a very, very challenging thing.
So, sorry, doctor, I think someone's microphone which is on. Shanti's microphone is on, I think.
Yeah. Let me just mute her.
Can you mute everyone else?
Yes. I'll do that.
Sorry, doctor. Yeah.
Right. I was talking about sensitivity and specificity. And so this ability to detect cancer and not having too many false positives is what we have to balance. So it's really sort of, tight, thin rope walking in some sense, right? If you call somebody who is not cancerous as cancer, then there's all this false positive, psychological effect of, oh my God, I got something, right? Obviously, all of us will do that. And if we miss, we are missing, so that high level of accuracy and balancing and right messaging, is a very big challenge. And as an entrepreneur, you are in the mood of like, when do I go to the market? Because I want to try it out on the ground, right? And that I would say, I sort of, share it with all the healthcare entrepreneurs or aspiring healthcare entrepreneurs here. Patience is very, very important. Do not, because at the end of the day, the final end user's health is our goal, and never ever compromise it because you want to go to market fast, right? So finding out ways in which you can still test a solution, when you're still fine tuning accuracy is very, very important. What we did, for example, is that we got a Dr. Ramprakash sir, who was an expert in, very few, only one expert in India who can actually read a physician. And we partnered with him and we told him, sir, we're going to generate these reports. You look at the report, but just look at the images and you do the guidance, right? You look at the scores, but you make your own interpretation of the images. And so he was going to sign, and he's a radiologist and so on and so forth. So we initially, when we went to market within a year, we were actually going with reports, which was signed by a radiologist. And radiologists not always dependent on our scores. He could basically, we may have high scores, and the radiologist may actually could even say no. it was not cancer. It's up to him, right? Because he's actually making conscious decision. So with this kind of thing, we were also able to learn on the go. And we did a lot of clinical trials as well, because when you go to a doctor like Dr. Sujakar sir in HCG, and he first said, I've never heard of this before. How can a computer scientist come and tell me something I haven't read before in my, a vast experience? So I said, sir, please try this out, because it has worked in 300 patients. It will work. So we actually made this test run for every person who's coming in for a mammogram, and he was not even looking at our results, and he was just giving mammography report. So we were actually it's an externally driven clinical trial, comparing and then fine tuning it as we move forward. So it's really like an exam again. And fast forward 1 year, and when we said there is somebody likely to have an abnormality, and ultrasound had said no, he said call the patient back, right? This is saying something, and I want to see that person back, right? So that is how I think we'll have to go forward, and
okay,
those are some of the challenges.
So maybe we have the last 10 minutes before we open it out to question and answers. Though we have a lot more to cover, I want to quickly focus on areas that organizations like RedMed is into, preventive healthcare. Now, preventive healthcare, give us a sense, doctor, of the wearables and what is the innovation that is happening in the preventive healthcare, areas of healthcare.
Yeah. So some of these technologies like AI and all work on data, right? Where is the data coming in, right? And when we talk about preventive healthcare and use of AI, we are talking about looking at all the data and then figuring out if something wrong is going to happen in the future, predicting a future event. Now, for this, we have umpteen number of wearables that now available. Your Samsung Watch or Apple Watch, can actually, many of you would have it, and if you wear it, it will actually give you heartbeat, of course, temperature, how many steps you walked, and so on and so forth. All this information can be used to predict the general health of the person, right? And also, most importantly, look for anomalies, right? Especially, heart rate monitoring is very, very important for somebody who probably has an arrhythmia or something, right? Whenever there's irregular heartbeat changes which is not related to the steps and so on, you could immediately, call the required assistance that is required for it, right? So this regular monitoring, which gives you one mindset of preventative healthcare, right? So which basically means I want to take care, like, how many of us wearing a watch are able to stick to this 10,000 steps a day, right? Because there is a metric associated with it. Whenever you have a metric and you have a goal to meet the metric, and there's more compliance possible, right? And so it's also, so many of these preventative, wearable devices and so on help in collection of data, which can be used for two things. One is predicting something that is likely to happen in future and taking early action. And second one is to bring in this quantitative mindset so that, there is a internal desire to be compliant and be healthy, right? So that, I think, is something these wearable devices are providing today. And, there's several other abnormalities that one can predict if something goes wrong, and also anomalies, right? Every day your temperature is this, suddenly your temperature increases or something like that. These anomalies also can be detected using some of the AI technologies there. So I think these are not medical grade in the sense of they may not have, when you say, heart rate is let's say 78, it could be 80. They're not required to be medical grade, like use the same, the exact number that you get in the hospital. But as long as they're approximate, they just do give an idea. So that way it is, it is possible to give some kind of a control in the hands of the person itself. So yeah, I mean, these are what are called as IoT devices, which are coming in. Many of them have internet capability, Bluetooth definitely, so that they can use mobile devices to basically contact the cloud and sort of upload data for regular monitoring and regular analysis. I've also seen going further in the same space, but getting into clinical and medical grade devices like IoT devices, which are used for home health care, for critical care as well, where these devices are also wearables. They are actually, as I said, medical grade. So these are monitored on the cloud, with what are called as remote ICUs that are possible. The doctors are now, you don't need, patients to be in an ICU all the time, but they can be at home, but you have all of the vital signs monitored on a continuous basis. And the doctor on the cloud, basically, like wherever he is, will look at the images and the values and give feedback and immediate care as needed. Touch of a button, you could actually call the person and so on, right? So this is also being possible, and all this is because of wearables and IoT, enabled devices that are picking up. In fact, there is a new science that has started off area. Instead of IoT, they call it Internet of Medical Things, especially in a hospital. IoT is called. So inside a hospital, you have multiple devices for internet enabled. All of that data can be conglomerated, and you could actually take decisions on the integrated data. Could also be health risk assessment using all of these variables. There are 10,000, 20,000 kind of diseases that you can predict, probability for. So that way, again, it's not just one, parameter or one questionnaire. All of these go into thousands of machine learning models. You can predict risks for all of them. And then only where there is a risk, those are called out. So I think we are in a good era where data is being collected in different forms. In fact, in 2015, the number of devices which are internet enabled became more than the number of people who are internet enabled. So machines took over the like almost 4 years, 5 years ago. So yes, we are in an era where data is everywhere. We are trying to figure out how to make more sense of the data to have better lifestyle for the person, better health for the person.
So, I think it was a very elaborate response. Very nice that you covered most of the areas that I wanted to really, wanted you to respond to. And you speak with cloud with so much of passion, Dr. Geetha. I think there is some past life connection or the present life connection that you have with cloud. I know you have written a book on cloud as well. And you spoke about it in preventive healthcare. You did mention cloud. You mentioned Internet of Things, how it's being used. Can you, explain to us what is so unique to cloud technologies for healthcare segment in specific? How can entrepreneurs leverage the cloud? And healthcare entrepreneur, how can they leverage cloud technologies? What are those few things that you believe cloud has helped healthcare segment?
Yeah, so a few years ago, we were talking about in on-premise or cloud-based technology, what are the advantages and so on. Happy to take that forward. Now it's almost become a norm that everything runs on the cloud. So what are we talking about here? Let's say as a healthcare entrepreneur, you want to get started and start building your machine learning model, right? Some of the newer methods called deep learning and all require GPU, graphic processing unit, which is very expensive, and you generally will not have it on a laptop. Typically, many of them, laptops are good enough to do it. So, for example, for training the models that we built, it used to take 1 week. For any small chain, we used to wait for 1 week to get the model if it's just on the laptop. Mm-hmm. Now, on a cloud, what happens is you can get high-performing processors, and you can pay as you go. So, if you're using it for 1 hour, pay for that 1 hour, get the results, and switch off the machine for some time. Right. So this compute pay on a go is one main reason why use of cloud started what's called as elasticity. Whenever you want, you can have more compute. Whenever you don't want to reduce the compute, and so on and so forth. Then most importantly nowadays, and I think you being from Oracle and SaaS and all that, you would agree with me, Mr. Guraj, about the SaaS based model. So let me talk about the breast cancer screening, just to take an example here, right? So whenever the healthcare worker is screening a patient, what happens is as soon as she takes an image, it is uploaded, it comes to our cloud, and it's completely anonymized. We will not know who the person is, what's her name, age, nothing. So we'll know that there's an image. And why is that important? Now, first 1 month after her training of a health worker, we have a expert sitting there, and every time there is an upload, she's going to watch and say, did she do a right thing? right? She doesn't have to be in every village to sort of, make sure that, so that is one, right? That is a remote access is being possible. Secondly, and from a installation perspective, right? Now there are installations in hundreds of cities and villages. Now, whatever we learn from one side can be applied for another hospital. Let's say HCG hospital has very, very complex cases, and we learn how to detect those complex cases. It will be useful for, let's say, Safra hospital in another place, right? Because the same machine learning model in the cloud is being used for all the hospitals. And most importantly, one of the key problems of software distribution has always been versioning, right? If I want to release a new version of software, how do I go to all of these different customer bases and then ensure that there is an update? Of course, now we always like hit software upgrade and it gets upgraded. Now, the release is very, very simple. I just have to release it on the cloud and it automatically everybody's is upgraded. There's no special effort to upgrade a new model or upgrade for a new feature and so on and so forth. There are several advantages, especially it is economical when your usage is very, very small as an entrepreneur. As I mentioned, you can just get started tomorrow. Like, you don't have to wait for procuring the device and so on and so forth. So I think it's almost become a norm, especially with the mobile plus cloud, you make compute available every hand in some sense.
Yes. So I think we are now stepping into the question answers time. I think we can take some questions.
There are some questions in the chat box. Probably I can read them out.
Yeah,
Dr.
please.
Geetha.
Yeah.
I think Monica Suresh, Dr. Monica Suresh was one of our speakers earlier. She has asked, Dr. Geetha, would you please enlighten about specificity of this thermal imaging? Is thermal imaging a confirmatory test for breast cancer? That's the question she has.
Yeah, very good question, Dr. Monica. Thermal imaging per se has very low specificity. That is, ability to detect cancer is very high. Ability to say whether it is not cancer is very low. However, what we call our solution with AI is called thermalytics, which is not thermal imaging alone. We add AI into it. With that, we have been able to, been able to get 100% sensitivity and 94% specificity. That means if you call out 100 people as positive, 7 people may be not positive, which is a very high level of specificity that we are able to achieve. And this is also on the screening population where there are no symptoms or anything. Of course, with symptomatic people also we have over 90% sensitivity and over 80% specificity.
Okay. Another question related to that, Nitya Murali is asking, can this be replicated for other organs in the body?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Yes, yes, it can be potentially replicated for other parts. Thermal imaging in research, just without the AI, has been used for several other types of abnormalities: skin cancer, colorectal, cervical, and also diabetic foot, and several other blood vessel related issues and so on. Head and neck cancer, of course, thyroid and all that. So we are also planning to expand to other type of cancers. But as an entrepreneur, as a startup, we wanted to solve one problem, one cancer fully, understand how to go about this, and then release newer models for others. Because everything requires a clinical trial and clinical validation. Without that, we cannot be sort of releasing things. So yes, in potentially it can be used for other.
So soon it will be rolled out for other organs too. Okay.
Yeah, God willing.
Yeah, Mr. Pati has asked, how is the response from the labs who do the regular master health checkups? Loss of revenue on the invested instrument, and to get new set of technicians trained in your AI-based techniques. I think a question for the future.
Good thought about the operational challenge. Yes, we are working with multiple diagnostic chains as well. Apollo clinics, we have it in all the, in 6 cities right now. We've rolled out in all centers of Apollo Clinic, Health Spring, and so on. So here the value prop, sir, is that mammography does not work on almost more than half of women who are walking into a hospital or a diagnostic center, because, as I mentioned, it does not work on women under 45 years of age. Now, with that, people who are actually proactively walking into a hospital happen to be working women, maybe because they are covered on a corporate, health checkup, or maybe they're really aware and so on. And these people cannot go through mammogram. So that is basically loss of customer for the diagnostic center, and they're very happy to take this additional test. And the training is very simple. Training for the technicians is just 2 days training, and we have a master trainer who does an excellent job of remote training as well, refresher training and all of that to make this really happen. So so that is for diagnostic centers who already have a mammogram. But honestly, there are many small diagnostic centers who do not provide breast health checkup. For them, this is the only way they are actually doing, health check, breast health check, or women check. And, yes, it is included in the preventive health packages. For
okay. An additional question from the same person, Mr. Pati. Do the doctors recommend the patients to have a recheck with the old method? That's a question he's asked.
So yes, initially when we go to a hospital go to a new hospital or a doctor, one is we have actually published in international publications and venues to show them the results of the trial, which is done by a third party and all. But some doctors want to say, I want to see it. So a 1-day camp or something we conduct, and we let them see for about 20 patients, and then they'll be convinced, and after that they switch off the other test, they just use ours. So there is always an evaluation round, especially if it's a very reputed doctor. Doesn't want to sort of believe in what we have done before. But once a reputed doctor says yes, the other doctors are happy to sort of follow and go for it. So that is what we are seeing more and more now with the regulatory clearance, with CE marking and all of that we have recently almost managed to get it. That the evaluation cycle is reducing, but yes, we had to initially make a lot of this evaluation. But yes, on a regular basis, you don't need any other test to be done unless our test is positive.
Okay. I think this question is from Sandhya from RedMed. Dr. Geetha, how do you address the challenge of maintaining the low temperature required for the thermal imaging in rural areas?
Yeah, so thank you, Sandhya. I think this is also a good question. Yes, I didn't revert to it much. See, what we do as a part of the 15-minute procedure is that we blow cool air for about 10 minutes and then 2 minutes of imaging and 2 minutes of reporting. But the cool air is not really like a nitrogen, like minus or whatever. It's just a simple water cooler that every person in Delhi will definitely have at home, right? So that's what we're talking about, right? Just a 27-degree kind of, cool breeze that comes. And so what we do is initially we were depending on air conditioners in the hospitals and so on. Now we have made it a norm that we carry a small cooler, like 2 feet, small cooler where you just pour 1 liter water and it blows the cool air, right? So that is what we carry along with us. Even for home screening, we take it along with us. It's very, very handy. And, same with the villages as well. It's not a problem actually.
Okay. So Dr. Monica has asked, in which all cities is this facility currently available, and what is the cost of this?
Yeah, so it's available in, that's what, 15 plus cities, all the metros, and including, of course, Bangalore, Delhi, Mysore, Mumbai, Pune, Dehradun, Bhubaneswar, Hyderabad, Chennai. So some 17 cities are there. If you come to NIRAMAI.com and give your PIN code, our team will call up and then say, which is the nearest place, because we have 75 different hospitals. And also, if there are a bunch of people in a particular town, right, we also send the technicians to do as like 2-3 days camps at that, whether there is a facility in the nearby hospital or not also. Charges wise, it depends on whether you're taking the test in a group setting or in a hospital. Hospitals typically charge about 1,500. In group setting, there's further discount because when people come there, multiple people get done and so on. So no heavy discount.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think if anybody has any questions, you can unmute and ask. Any questions, or you can put them in the chat.
I have couple of questions, Dr. Geetha. I think with respect to the current situation that we are seeing, right? One question is, could we have prevented Saurav Ganguly from having his stent surgery twice within 10 days time? And second question is, could we have predicted this pandemic earlier? How can AI help in the future?
Yeah. Good questions. The first one, yeah, I think there's a lot of research that is happening even in the US, even in Obama time of what is called as preventing readmission. So essentially what is happening is we think that the person has been cured and we say, yes, it's done, but it's not really done, right? It's called outcome based analysis, right? So I do not know all the details of um, sorrow, but definitely a readmission, a re-recurrence is that there is a small bit of it which is not fully done in the first case, right? Same thing with breast cancer. A recurrence may happen because because it's late stage and a few cells actually got into the blood and metastasized and went to some other place, or the doctor sort of forgot to remove some part of it. Usually there's a margin they keep and so on and so forth, but it could be okay. So here, yes, AI can help if there are other tools that the doctor is provided. For example, we were earlier talking about Gurraj, about AR, VR, and all of that, right? Where all of the different type of sensing that one can do for the body, about the body, can, if all of them can be put together in a single frame when the doctor is doing the surgery, at the time of need, right? And he's actually seeing, whether this vein is affected, whether this muscle is affected, all that, where is, the intersection happening. Then it is actually, they get more information in a palatable manner, which can be used at that point in time, So that kind of a data integration and making it available at the time of use is a big opportunity for healthcare. Another aspect is also in the readmission case, what we have done is looking at different parameters post-surgery as well, and trying to see if the person is declining in health, and if so, immediately, taking that action quickly, or making sure that the person is in the hospital till we are really sure it is stable, right? So that element also is something that we could, predict in terms of some scores and so on and so forth, hopefully. Pandemic prediction, I don't know. There are different people who are further experts in epidemiology. Having said that, I think this was, they're figuring out the root cause. I guess there is one particular country where the whole thing started, and there was a particular reason why this happened. I don't think those things could be predicted, but we can definitely predict how the pandemic will spread, using social network, or other what it calls network-based technologies, to figure out how fast it spreads, what do we need to do to cut off some of the spreading links and so on and so forth. Those kinds of things can definitely be.
Okay. I think we have one more question on the chat again.
Sujata Mutana is asking, how disruptive can AI be? When does the line of positive disruption move into the negative side?
Yeah, I think any technology, when given in the hands of the human, can be used for positive or negative, right? A simple example, it's all over the place, Facebook, WhatsApp, and all of them, right? How are you going to use this private data, right? How are you going to use this private data? For example, if all the data that is collected is, let's say, used by our insurance vendor to increase or decrease our insurance premium, I mean, is it good or bad? I mean, it's good for the insurance, so that, they know that somebody is not healthy. So we're going to incur additional treatment costs. So let's increase the premium. But then it's unfair, because that is my data. Why should somebody else know and make business sense out of it? And talking about Facebook, WhatsApp, we're talking about, showing the ads such a way that they change the way you're thinking, in a way that they want you to think, right? Do these kinds of things in a manipulative way of using the data, using your own data against you, is something that definitely is possible and needs to be avoided, I would say. But like I said, a weapon can be used for, plus or minus, the positive or constructive or destructive purposes. It's with our hands. And that's where the ethics in AI come into the picture. There's a lot of talk and discussions around what is ethical, to do with the AI, what is not, and so on. So that's still a open research area. Many sociologists and so on are coming in there. So I guess there is a boundary. Hopefully sane people will not get to that, but somebody with a destructive mind can actually cross the boundary. We hope it'll not happen. That's
Yeah. Any questions, anybody?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are thanking Dr. Geetha on
Yes,
usefulness.
Dr. M.S. Ramachandran, he's a very senior doctor. He is, I think you must have heard of him. He was here right from the beginning, and he says it's very useful and educative. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And we have a lot of good informative session by Mr. P.S. Moni, and such kind of words. So I think it's time to invite J. Srinivasan, co-founder RedMed. I invite you to this session so that you can give your closing comments.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meghalai. Dr. Geetha, this was very interesting and very educational as well. I have been asked to sort of summarize today's event, and I'll try my best. We have covered a lot of ground in the last 1 hour. Some of it is fairly complex. Even for me, I've been in healthcare for 30 odd years, and much of it is actually very new. And we're not talking just about the pandemic, but about the technology itself, which is making its presence in healthcare in a big way. So I'll try to quickly summarize what Dr. Geetha has been talking about today. She started out with the healthcare divide. We all know about it, living in India, about the demand-supply gap in healthcare, number of patients to doctors, number of patients to beds, and so on and so forth. She dwelt a little bit on affordability, which is a very big issue. In passing, she had also mentioned that India is largely an out-of-pocket healthcare market. Insurance actually addresses a very tiny percentage, so affordability becomes all the more important for that reason. Greater awareness about health in the aftermath of the pandemic. We are all aware of that. We hesitate to go into a clinic or a hospital now. Seeing a doctor is a choice that we make with great deliberation. Dr. Geetha then went on to looking at or describing her technology, which is basically a thermal sensor that NIRAMAI uses. And she compared it against the existent extant technology, which is mammography, which has not been adopted well for many reasons. This is a different technology altogether. It uses multiple temperature sensing in the region of several tens of thousands, if I heard you correctly, Dr. Geetha, to look at or to identify or spot where cancer is present. You've had over 35,000 screenings. The tier 1 towns where you have made headway, the picture of the X-ray is sent by the doctor, and this is an innovation that you have made in terms of addressing the needs of tier 1 and rural areas, where the picture of the X-ray is taken by the doctor and sent by WhatsApp in the closed group that you have for identification by NIRAMAI staff, and to immediately send out your response or the response of people analyzing it back to the doctor so that they can make an effective diagnosis and prescription. AI in healthcare, that was the next item we dwelt on, since NIRAMAI is heavily into AI. She gave a description about what AI or artificial intelligence is all about. A typical mammography Dr. Geetha mentioned at this point was that it costs about 2,500 to 3,000 rupees, but NIRAMAI costs 2/3 less, and a lot of it has to do with both the technology of the device as well as the amount of AI that really powers the whole thing. She gave the example of how simplification has helped the doctor to make a judgment call on a particular case, and she referred specifically to the traffic light metaphor, red, amber, green, and also the associated cost of this technology.
I think, Jay, your video is, yeah.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
must
it
have,
just came back. No problem.
my hand must have.
Yeah.
Okay. Continuing on in AI in healthcare, she described what AI really is and how it is applied in healthcare. She referred to the training phase where there is a classification in a supervised environment. So there is a supervised and unsupervised, and NIRAMAI uses the supervised method of training uh, the model to work, and thereby for the AI to learn, and then it is deployed. Essentially, what that means is it is able to understand what is hot versus what is not. So these are cancer cells that have a very high irregular growth, and it is able to do that because it has essentially been trained and it has learned how to distinguish between the two. Thereafter, we move to challenges. In terms of challenges, we started out with a lot of mistakes in healthcare that personnel in the course of their work generally happen to do because we are all humans. And therefore, accuracy of the AI component becomes very important in terms of supplementing the doctor's own diagnosis. You also mentioned here at this point that since NIRAMAI uses thermal imaging and therefore the temperature has been used in throughout history for a long time as indicating something perhaps negative as far as health is concerned. And what you're doing or what the technology does is basically continuing forward that very same idea that a differential temperature has a lot to tell, in this case to the doctor as well as to the patient. Cost of mistakes, high level of accuracy in clinical applications. Why is that? Because the cost of mistake, especially in this case, in these cases where we are trying to assess the presence or absence of cancer, can be enormous. It can be life-threatening. So, which is why the accuracy level of AI is paramount. But beyond accuracy, Dr. Geetha also referred to sensitivity and specificity. I will come back to that because she takes on a question at a later stage towards the end where she discusses this in greater detail. As a passing observation, which I can certainly appreciate as an entrepreneur myself, patience as a guiding principle for entrepreneurs, especially in healthcare, because the costs of doing the right thing versus the wrong thing is too extraordinary to even discuss. You mentioned clinical trials, comparing the performance with mammograms, and that is the whole way in which you are able to articulate that NIRAMAI's product is as good as extant products which use mammograms, and also to be able to convince the doctor as well as the patients this is a good technology for reasons of affordability, portability, and all the rest for patients to go in for. We then went into preventive healthcare, an area that excites me because we are into it. And at this point, Guru Raj had mentioned wearables, and you had, when I say you, I mean Dr. Geetha, in the context of wearables, referred to the several advantages of wearables, even though most of them are not clinical grade. You referred to the idea of monitoring health as enabling a mindset of preventative care, which did not exist prior. And also the idea that a metric plus goal makes compliance much easier. So this is really getting into behavioral context. When we see a metric before us and a certain goal that comes into our mind, we are more apt to undertake that thing. And I can certainly understand that. You also referred in this context to what data makes possible. It makes possible a quantitative mindset in the minds of people. It also enables identification of anomalies. And at this point, you had talked about clinical versus non-clinical grade devices. Something that the ordinary person on the street perhaps may not be as well aware of when they pick up a wearable for $1,000. And you had elaborated on this, that there is a clinical grade thing which is used in by doctors within a clinical setting, as opposed to a non-clinical thing such as a wearable that we can all use. And it is good to have to give us the mindset to pursue a goal, but it is certainly not clinical grade. And that was a good point that you had made there. You had also mentioned risk assessment as a basis for many of these data that comes out of wearables and other devices that is made possible, and to build models on about risk. And finally, speaking about preventive healthcare, you spoke about better health and better lifestyle. Moving on, you had then been guided to talk about cloud computing advantages. We live in India in a pay-as-you-go setting, which means that we all pay for things in healthcare, and having being familiar with that in healthcare, I suppose those who use cloud environments are also equally familiar that you're going to pay as you go. So that was a nice transition in terms of understanding what cloud computing is all about and what are the advantages that come from putting everything in the cloud and taking advantage of its various components, such as elasticity, advanced computing, and a SaaS-based model, which enables duplication of models from elsewhere. And software versioning. So you had mentioned about how, as in earlier days, as opposed to earlier days when we had to download Microsoft Windows and on every machine, it is now possible for one entity such as NIRAMAI to update the software, and bingo, we have the most current version. Then finally, we moved on to Q&A, and there was a lady who asked about specificity and sensitivity. And you, Dr. Geetha, mentioned that in the case of NIRAMAI's product, you have 100% sensitivity and 94% specificity. Please correct me if I'm wrong with my notes. And that is possible because of thermal imaging combined with AI, that you're able to bring the full force of accuracy in elevating both of these things. And essentially, when we talk about sensitivity and specificity, we are looking at the false positives and false negatives. That is a statistical concept. I will not go into it, but essentially that's what it means here. Further on, there was a question on, can this be replicated in other diagnoses? Dr. Geetha had responded that it is being explored in other areas such as cervical cancer, colonoscopy, thyroid, head and neck cancers. So once again, Dr. Geetha, correct me if I've got your notes somewhere mangled up. NIRAMAI is currently working with multiple hospital chains. You are present in over 15 cities, about 17 cities and 75 plus hospitals. The extent technology mammograms does not work in women under 45 years of age, which is where there is an advantage in using NIRAMAI's thermal imaging technology. Diagnostic centers, not all diagnostic centers may have a mammogram, may have mammography. So that is also a reason why this technology is more amenable to use in such places. You have regulatory clearance, CE markings, increasing number of doctor recommendations, which is percolating down, increasing the whole usage. Okay.
I think.
So there was a question on the use of your technology in rural areas, and if cold temperature requirements is a stopper. And you had responded that it does not require nitrogen cooling like temperatures. Any small room cooler it actually does the work, and therefore it can be used in rural areas with the appropriate equipment available, everyday equipment available. One question was this was a repeat question, but I'm repeating it here. How many cities are your solutions available? And you had responded between 15 to 17 cities, 75 different hospitals. And the charges are approximately, in hospitals is 1,500, and group charges are, I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Slightly lesser, she said. It might be slightly lesser.
Okay, slightly lesser. All right.
I
then
think
there was a question on Guru had asked two questions. One was about the recent episode involving Saurav Ganguly, and you had responded that with an answer about hospital readmission as a concept, where the procedures may have been something may have been missed the first time, and post surgery if the patient is declining in health. So some of these are methods by which the readmission could be countered in people. The second question Guru had asked was pandemic predictions, and Dr. Geetha had responded that this is a subject that experts in epidemiology are more consonant with, some things cannot be predicted, but the spread of disease can be predicted using network theory. So that's all I have, Meghu. I hope I covered it all.
Jay, I think you deserve a standing ovation.
Excellent
Wonderful, excellent summary of just in 10 minutes you've just put together everything.
Thank you.
Yeah,
only the doctor is missing before your name, Jay. Otherwise, it is as detailed as a research project.
Yeah.
So, in summary, I think when it comes to a healthcare startup, patients and patient both are important.
Very nice.
Correct. Like one thing.
I think Meghu has a person now to summarize for the forthcoming meetings also.
Oh yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, Pati, because I usually announce the next speaker for the healthcare insights. So I have some regulars who have been coming every month, and the next speaker for healthcare insights is Dr. Prasad Deshpande. He is going to talk about cardiovascular disease and Ayurveda. So mark your calendars. It's on February 27th. The last Saturday of every month is your time for healthcare insights. So mark your calendars. But also we have other sessions, which is Ask the Expert sessions. And, we have very different topics. On February 5th, we have Mr. K.S. Ravi Shankar, who's going to talk about family business advisory. It's going to be very, very useful for certain entrepreneurs. And on February 13th, we have Dr. Kalaiselvan, Madhusudan and Kalaiselvan talking about the big temple, the Tanjavur big temple, the myths and facts of Tanjavur big temple. So tune in everybody for all these future sessions. Please like the LBN Tech Solutions page or the All Ladies League Digital Transformation page. All the events are going to be there. And thanks for patiently spending the time on a Saturday evening, but it was so enlightening. And this is the future. We are staring at the future. And like Dr. Geetha said, let us use it only for the positive aspects. It is up to us to take it forward. Okay. Have a lovely evening. And
Thank you, Meghala.
Thank you,
guests. Thank you, Meghala and LBN.
Thank you, Dr. Geetha. Thanks, Guru.
Thank you, Jay. And
thanks, Meghala.
Thank you. Thank you, participants.
Thank you.
Meghala, thank you so much.
Thank you.